Okay, friends, generative AI and generative AI tools are all the rage at the moment, but there is a severe lack of understanding of how this technology works. This video is all about simplifying that and making you smarter than you were 5 minutes ago. What I'm going to do is break down this image that you see on your screen here from the World Economic Forum. This is a really interesting image because the World Economic Forum actually asked a large language model to explain what generative AI is, and got all of this here, as you can see on the screen. So a large language model, by the way, if you don't know, is ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Perplexity. And fun fact, if you don't know what GPT means in ChatGPT, that means generative pre-trained. Basically, a pre-trained database for creating new content. But let's get into it. Simply, there's a 3-step process to how generative AI works. A large language model will have a training database. In that training database, it will contain lots of information from around the world. You can consider articles, blogs, different types of data, sound files, video files. Lots of stuff is in this database. How we interact with this database as a human is through what we call a prompt. Now, basically, just imagine a prompt as an instruction. And what you're doing is giving instructions to the database to tell it what you want. So very simply, you might say, hey, I want you to help me with X task. Do that by completing Y in this fashion. Really simple. So all you're doing is talking to a database, but in a very simple format. The output of that is generating a new piece of content. It uses all of that information that in its database based on the prompt, which is our instruction that you've given it to create new content for you. Now, there's some key things to be clear on when it comes to generative AI. Firstly, generative AI functions probabilistically. So it's like a probability engine. So this means you're going to get different responses even if you ask it the same questions. You've probably found that. You go to ChatGPT or any tool actually, and you get different responses each time. Similar, but always different in some ways. The traditional apps that we're used to, like Google search as an example, are mostly deterministic, which means they follow a set of rules for specific outputs. So these apps will do things like look up product prices, validate customer information with repeatable answers. So if you were to go to Google now and look for a flight from one location to another, you would get the same information on that route when it leaves, when it lands, and all of the other key details would remain the same, even if you put it in 20 times, because it is deterministic. But generative AI and all of its tools are trying to please us as human users. It will fill in those gaps to make sure it gives you an answer, which is why we have to be on the watch out for hallucination and misinformation. Now, of course, what we can do if you're using a large language model at a workplace is you can fine-tune that based upon data that you have in your organization. That is a completely different topic. What generative AI does is to calculate the most probable output to answer your questions or create images or create videos, whatever it is you're looking at. So I hope it's been helpful for you and that's simplified it. At a very top level, that is what you need to know about generative AI, which is part of the wider artificial intelligence family. Remember, it's all about working with a database, providing an instruction, and then getting an output based on those instructions. If there's any questions, leave those in the comments.